Hello and welcome to Unworthy History. Today I'm going to bring you some actual history from this book right here, Geronimo, My Life, as told to S.M. Barrett back around 1906. So the story we're going to read today is called Fighting Under Difficulties. This is again during the time period after Geronimo had invaded Mexico in order to avenge the killings of his family by Mexican soldiers from Sonora back in the 1850s. All the other Apaches were satisfied after the Battle of Kas-Ki-Yeh, but I still desired more revenge. For several months we were busy with the chase and other peaceful pursuits. Finally, I succeeded in persuading two other warriors, Acochne and Codene, to go with me to invade the Mexican country. We left our families with the tribe and went on the warpath. We were on foot and carried 3 days' worth of rations. We entered Mexico on the north line of Sonora and followed the Sierra de Antunes mountains to the south end of the range. Here we decided to attack a small village. I did not know the name of this village. At daylight we approached from the mountains. 5 horses were hitched outside. We advanced cautiously, but just before we reached the horses, the Mexicans opened fire from the houses. My 2 companions were killed. Mexicans swarmed on every side. Some were mounted, some were on foot, and all seemed to be armed. 3 times that day I was surrounded, but I kept fighting, dodging, and hiding. Several times during the day while in concealment, I had a chance to take deliberate aim at some Mexican who, gun in hand, was looking for me. I do not think I missed my aim either time. With the gathering darkness, I found more time to retreat toward Arizona, but the Mexicans did not quit the chase. Several times the next day, mounted Mexicans tried to head me off. Many times they fired on me, but I had no more arrows, so I depended upon running and hiding, although I was very tired at the time. I had not eaten since the chase began, nor had I dared to stop for rest. The second night I got clear of my pursuers, but I never slackened my pace until I reached our home in Arizona. I came into our camp without booty, without my companions, exhausted but not discouraged. The wives and children of my 2 dead companions were cared for by their people. Some of the Apaches blamed me for the evil results of the expedition, but I said nothing. Having failed, it was only proper that I should remain silent. But my feelings toward the Mexicans did not change. I still hated them and longed for revenge. I never ceased to plan for their punishment, but it was hard to get the other warriors to listen to my proposed raids. In a few months after this last adventure, I persuaded 2 other warriors to join me in raiding the Mexican frontier. On our former raid, we had gone through the Nedni Apaches range into Sonora. This time we went through the country of the Choconen and entered the Sierra Madre Mountains. We traveled south, secured more rations, and prepared to begin our raids. We had selected a village near the mountains which we intended to attack at daylight. While asleep that night, Mexican scouts discovered our camp and fired on us, killing 1 warrior. In the morning, we observed a company of Mexican troops coming from the south. They were mounted and carried supplies for a long journey. We followed their trail until we were sure that they were headed for our range in Arizona. Then we hurried past them and in 3 days reached our own settlement. We arrived at noon, and that afternoon about 3 o'clock, these Mexican troops attacked our settlements. Their first volley killed 3 small boys. Many of the warriors of our tribe were away from home, but the few of us who were in camp were able to drive the troops out of the mountains before night. We killed 8 Mexicans and lost 5, 2 warriors and 3 boys. The Mexicans rode due south in full retreat. 4 warriors were detailed to follow them, and in 3 days these trailers returned, saying that the Mexican cavalry had left Arizona going southward. We were quite sure they would not return soon. Soon after this, in the summer of 1860, I was again able to take the warpath against the Mexicans, this time with 25 warriors. We followed the trail of the Mexican troops last mentioned and entered the Sierra de Saharipa mountains. The second day in these mountains, our scouts discovered mounted Mexican troops. There was only one company of cavalry in this command, and I thought that by properly surprising them, we could defeat them. We ambushed the trail over which they were to come. This was at a place where the whole company must pass through a mountain defile. We reserved fire until all of the troops had passed through. Then the signal was given. The Mexican troopers, seemingly without a word of command, dismounted and, placing their horses on the outside of the company for breastworks, made a good fight against us. I saw that we could not dislodge them without using all our ammunition, so I led a charge. The warriors suddenly pressed in from all sides, and we fought hand to hand. During this encounter, I raised my spear to kill a Mexican soldier, just as he leveled his gun at me. I was advancing rapidly, and my foot slipping in a pool of blood, I fell into the Mexican trooper. He struck me over the head with the butt of his gun, knocking me senseless. Just at that instant, a warrior who followed in my footsteps killed the Mexican with a spear. In a few minutes, not a Mexican soldier was left alive. When the Apache war cry had died away and their enemies had been scalped, they began to care for their dead and wounded. I was found lying unconscious where I had fallen. They bathed my head in cold water and restored me to consciousness. Then they bound up my wound, and the next morning, although weak from the loss of blood and suffering from a severe headache, I was able to march on the return to Arizona. I did not fully recover for months, and I still wear the scar given me by that musketeer. In this fight we had lost so heavily that there really was no glory in our victory, and we returned to Arizona. No one seemed to want to go on the warpath again that year. In the summer of 1861, with 12 warriors, I again went into Mexico. We entered Chihuahua and followed south on the east side of the Sierra Madre Mountains 4 days' journey, then crossed over to the Sierra de Saharipa Range, not far east of Casa Grande. Here we rested 1 day and sent out scouts to reconnoiter. They reported pack trains camped 5 miles west of us. The next morning, just at daybreak, as these drivers were starting with their mule pack train, we attacked them. They rode away for their lives, leaving us the booty. The mules were loaded with provisions, most of which we took home. 2 mules were loaded with side meat or bacon. This we threw away. We started to take these pack trains home, going northward through Sonora, but when near Casita, Mexican troops overtook us. It was at daybreak and we were just finishing our breakfast. We had no idea that we had been pursued, so that our enemies were near until they opened fire upon us. At the first volley a bullet struck me, a glancing lick just at the lower corner of the left eye, and I fell unconscious. All the other Indians fled to cover. The Mexicans, thinking me dead, started in pursuit of the fleeing Indians. In a few moments I regained consciousness and had started at full speed for the woods, when another company coming up opened fire on me. Then the soldiers who had been chasing the other Indians turned, and I stood between 2 hostile companies. But I did not stand long. Bullets whistled in every direction at a close range to me. One inflicted a slight flesh wound on my side, but I kept running, dodging, and fighting until I got clear of my pursuers. I climbed up a steep canyon where the cavalry could not follow. The troopers saw me but did not dismount and try to follow. I think they were wise not to come on. It had been understood that in case of surprise with this booty, our place of rendezvous should be the Santa Bita Mountains in Arizona. We did not reassemble in Mexico but traveled separately, and in 3 days we were encamped in our place of rendezvous. From this place we returned home empty-handed. We had not even a partial victory to report. I again returned wounded, but I was not yet discouraged. Again I was blamed by our people, and again I had no reply. After our return, many of the warriors had gone on a hunt, and some of them had gone north to trade for blankets from the Navajo Indians. I remained at home trying to get my wounds healed. One morning, just at daybreak, when the squaws were lighting the campfires to prepare breakfast, 3 companies of Mexican troops who had surrounded our settlement in the night opened fire. There was no time for fighting. Men, women, and children fled for their lives. Many women and children and a few warriors were killed, and 4 women were captured. My left eye was still swollen shut, but with the other I saw well enough to hit one of the officers with an arrow, and then make good my escape among the rocks. The troopers burned our teepees and took our arms, provisions, ponies, and blankets. Winter was at hand. There were not more than 20 warriors in camp at this time, and only a few of us had secured weapons during the excitement of the attack. A few warriors followed the trail of the troops as they went back to Mexico with their booty, but were unable to offer battle. It was a long, long time before we were again able to go on the warpath against the Mexicans. So that's the end of this chapter right here, Fighting Under Difficulties. So this was a very difficult time for Geronimo when he was trying to take revenge on the Mexicans, but they kept attacking him as well. So if you want to hear more stories like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Unworthy History.